Hello, everybody. How are you? My name is Angela, middle initial K, last name Durden, and this is Stolen Hours. It's where you get to walk a short mile in my shoes as I'm putting a book together. This is my newest novel. I do not have a name for it yet. It is not yet published. I'm still working on it. But this is the second chapter. Um, the second chapter introduces the character in the novel Whitfield, Nebraska. That was his first. He's Benjamin Turner. He's a private investigator. We'll hear about that in a minute. Um, but that adventure tells us a lot about him, a woman who became his wife later, and his good buddy from the military police, Don, and Don's wife before they were married, and hunting down somebody. And I'm going to read some of that to you, I think. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. So this chapter is called Chapter 2. Well, let me just read it to you. And here we go. It's just a sneak peek, you guys. Chapter 2 looks like love to me. Since returning from the British Virgin Islands to hunt one Randall S. Penniman III, the killer of Amanda, whose body I'd been hired to find, and many others, some whose names would never be known, and some whose bodies would never be found, my life was percolating right along. The satisfying end to that came when Randall S. Penniman III took pills and drank a bottle of liquid courage before voluntarily slipping off a catamaran into the Atlantic Ocean, never to be seen again. Not long after I married, for the first and last time, and settled down, I got used to being given honey-do lists. I'd heard my married friends complain about these for years, but now that I get them myself, I'm actually enjoying the process. Helping my wife around her family farm in Nebraska between working cases as a private eye is not a bad thing. My wife's name is Verlene. I call her Headliner. She calls me PYT. I've been home a month from another case when the phone rang. It was my Marine buddy in Georgia. We'd been military police together, catching soldiers gone wild. Our fun was chasing women. Don, now a homicide detective in a small North Georgia county, had been with me in the BVI for the Penniman denouement, along with Wanda, a fellow police officer from that same county. Don and Wanda had since married. She gave birth to their second child a couple of months ago. Now me, I'd never have children, and frankly, never want any. But I was happy for my friend, even if he would be retirement age when his youngest graduated high school. Ben, what up? Planning on coming out to see you, that's what up. Sweet. Want me to pick you up at Hartsfield? No, we're going to rent a car and drive up to your place. V's never seen Georgia up close, and I thought it'd be nice to take back roads. Let her get a feel for the countryside after we drive through Atlanta. Sounds good to me. Text or call when you're close. We're excited about having y'all visit. Y'all. Y'all. Ha! You sound more Southern every time I talk to you. It happens if you stay too long. We hung up. No need for goodbyes or other pleasantries. Now, at this point, they arrive in Atlanta, they see the town, then they drive to Hartwell, then a call comes in the night. You can read all that later. Late night or early morning, depending on how one looked at it, Don's cell rang, waking him and me. Through the wall, I heard the typical murmurs that accompany such dark 30 calls. Like he always did, Don answered, "Yeah?" Paused, while the person on the other end said, "We've got a situation," which meant a murder. Don said, "Text the address." Then he crawled out of bed, dressed, and headed to his car, where he found me waiting. "You always had sharp ears like a damn eagle has sharp eyes. Let's go." I left a note for the girls. I said, "And you was always ever the helpful Eagle Scout, too." We got in. He tapped a link in a text that had come through. GPS came up with directions to the scene. He knew the area. Swanky houses and swanky, privately maintained parks with water features and woodlands, all backing up to the big water feature, Lake Hartwell. Arriving 20 minutes later at the front door, gloves and booties were doled out, and we signed in. We walked into a foyer 3 stories high and under a complicated, artsy chandelier hanging at its very top. Surely that had to cost more than what Don and I made together in 2 years, and should it fall, looking like it was wrought iron, would render all under it flatter than a 2-day roadkill on a highway in the middle of summer. In other words, not good for anything ever again. And here, there's going to be some investigative stuff to follow, and this, that, and the other. And then comes this. Taking in the scene as a whole, we stood at the doorway. EMTs had quickly assessed the victim was DRT, a technical medical term that meant dead right there, and soon to be taking the big dirt nap. No detritus of the EMTs was left behind in the room because none had been needed. Nothing out of place to indicate a violent struggle. In fact, the scene looked almost pristine. Almost. And then here's going to be some interaction between the EMTs and Don and them, and then it leads to this. Don turned back to me. Tell me a story. Looks like love to me. Now, that last line, looks like love to me. I stole that. I stole it from the closer. Don't know if you ever watched it. Oh, what is her name in real life that played Brenda Lee Johnson? Gosh, what is her name in real life? I know it. But anyway, that was the almost one of the opening scenes in the very first episode of The Closer when it first came out. And when everybody got to meet her for the first time. Oh, and she said, well, looks like love to me. And I have never forgotten that. Gosh, how many years ago has that been? I don't know. And I know that it, I'm a woman and I'm reading a man's conversation and a man's thoughts. And when I read them out loud, you're hearing a woman's voice. But when you're reading it on paper, I think these words are going to come through as if a man actually said them. I do know a ton of men, and I have listened to them all my life, their cadence, how they talk, and this sort of thing. So I think I've got it through, including single men, married men, men with children in various ages, men who married late, men who married early, men who had children late, men who had children early. So I think I've got a handle on it. But when you're reading it on paper, you supply the voice. It could be your voice. I don't know. It could be your father's voice or your buddy's voice or something, but you are the one supplying the voice. So I'm reading it right here, but this is actually something for you to be able to do. Now listen, there's this little, what do you call this thing up in the right corner? It's a QR code. Depending on, I think you can click on it if you're on YouTube or on reading this from a website like Substack. If you're on a phone watching this, then I think you just touch it and it'll take you to my website called AngelaDurden-books.com. And there you'll see a bunch of things I've written. And they all have little buy links on them. So buy yourself some books. That'll be awesome. And you know what? I think I like my teleprompter. It's going to take me a little bit longer to get used to it. Oh, didn't I tell you I was just trying out my teleprompter? Oh my gosh. So I use StreamYard, as you can see. Let me see if I can put that up there. Hang on one second. Media assets. This. You see in the upper left-hand corner where it shows stolen hours? That's the duck that's in the middle of this thing. That's the StreamYard logo. So StreamYard has been very interesting. So if you're thinking about doing your own author type of things and you want to be able to do it at your speed, the way you want, they're coming out with some really good stuff. One of the things is the teleprompter. Now, we'll tell you, the teleprompter has a limitation. The limitation is that I copied the entire chapter out of my Word document, and I went to the teleprompter window and Control V, paste it in, wouldn't go. I had to do 2 or 3 paragraphs, go back, pick some more, 2 or 3 paragraphs. I said, I'm not doing this for the whole chapter, which is why I gave you all those asterisks. So I'm going to let them know that that is a problem, and I don't know why it'll only take so many characters at a time, because I was able to put the whole thing in there, but just could only copy and paste a few at a time. So I need you guys to, if you're an author yourself and you want to do reading of your stuff without going back and forth looking at the book, or unless that's your thing, which is perfectly fine, and you want to do some talking about the character development or whatever, you can use a teleprompter, because it's got on the screen where you see my face, it'll have the what do you call that, the words scrolling right in this area here, and right below it, about here, when you put your cursor on the screen, your controls for how big the text is, how fast it scrolls, are all right there, and you can, tweak it from there and make it go and make it stop, start over, whatever you want to do. So I think that's all I need to show you. But remember, visit my website at blueroombooks.com as the publisher, and then also visit, hit that little icon right there with a little duck in the middle, that QR code. That's cute. They've added QR codes too. QR codes are great. So you can now put a QR code on your screen that you couldn't do before. It would have to be an actual JPEG that you would have to put on the thing. It'll make you smaller, and then you can say, oh, here, but it wouldn't even act as a QR code on the screen like that. But this is a live thing, and it's a QR code. I love StreamYard. StreamYard is affordable. It has a lot of good things. It works awesome. I've been doing all my podcasts with it, except for Joshua H. Batchelder's, because I have to do that on my iPhone and film it and then bring it in, because sitting in front of a camera and having to operate everything, he's not up for that. He is almost 95. So, but he's got some good stuff to say. Well, anyway, I'm going to end it now. Goodbye, 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 goodbye.